Okay, and we're recording. So so the same three questions.
Have you started?
Yeah, I started.
All right. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. What's your name? Whatever name you wish to give.
My name is now Bony Tony, which is my character that I portray. I mean, I'm basically myself, but it's more a look than a change of personality, I would say. So just a way of marketing myself.
Okay, fabulous. And where are we? Just to give the video a bit of context.
Where are we? We're in a flat in Edinburgh, sort of not quite in the centre, sort of heading towards Leith. But walkable to the centre, about 15-20 minutes from the centre.
And how would you describe yourself as a performer?
Well, I've got to work on that. I need to. I don't gig enough, so I probably need to work on that. But so at the moment, I just write stuff and I try to memorise it and then I perform it. But I probably need to work on my performing. I've done acting lessons because I thought that might help, but I didn't really like acting, to be honest. I don't really like it. I think speaking clearly is something you can get from acting. If it's acting for the stage as opposed to for the camera, I did a course on acting for the camera, which wasn't actually of much use for live performances. So yeah, I think I need to do a bit more live work. I've been doing some at Edinburgh, obviously, Fringe Festival, but I think from now on I'm going to try to get better at that, and I just want to. I don't know, have more impact somehow. I've seen some really good performers on stage. However, again, there's a kind of fuzzy borderline between certain types of performance and acting, and sometimes acting can, people with acting training can seem better, but I'm not sure that is necessarily always works in comedy. It does in certain types of performance that I've seen, but not necessarily always in comedy. I think in comedy we're looking for somebody that's just themselves, aren't we, more? So therefore I'm not sure how much I should act, or maybe it's best not to worry about that and just to be myself and just kind of maybe focus more on the material rather than the style of presentation, which should just be me, if you see what I mean, and just work on the material and make that more personal perhaps than I've done in the past, and then it would have more impact.
And what do you think the difference between performing on screen versus performing in front of a live audiences?
When you're performing on screen, from my experience in the acting class, you have to imagine a lot more. And I think if you have, again, going back to the acting thing, if you are on stage and you have done acting training, you probably will build that into your performance. You become that person you become somebody else basically in your mind, and you have to imagine all the background of that character and all those kind of things, and how they feel, how they have felt all their life, how they feel at that moment. And there can be variations, say if you do it like from one night to the next, if you're doing that style where there's a script and you're not ad-libbing, although you can ad-lib, but you've got to, you don't always have to do it exactly the same each night, performing on stage as opposed to performing in front of the camera, you're not limited to either just your imagination or talking to the other actor that you might be having a dialogue with in front of the camera, and you pretend there's nobody else watching. You are interacting much more with the audience rather than with somebody in the scene with you. I mean, you can bring the audience into the act by talking to them, which is easier to do in comedy than acting. So although, as you probably know, that has been done in plays in the early 20th century, but where they break down the wall or whatever it is between actor and audience, but comedy does that all the time. So it's a lot freer, than straight acting comedy. You can do what you like, basically. You can break away from your script at any time, if you want to call it a script, and just banter with the audience or react to an unexpected event where somebody, for instance, drops a glass, you know, or somebody says something and you might not even hear what they say and you go, what did you say over there, you know, because let's face it, we don't like it when people talk, you know, when we want them to listen to us and laugh. Unless we want them to talk. We don't like if they talk, you know, without our permission. So quite often, you know, a comedian will break off from what they were going to say, partly because they're annoyed and they want to assert themselves and stop and scare people from doing too much talking off in the audience. And just like a school teacher, you know, what did you say, Johnny? You know, you want to impose discipline on the audience because if you don't, you know, it can get out of control.
And you mentioned about you trying to be like be like more yourself on stage, etc.
Yeah.
So do you feel like there's a bleed over of you on stage and you off stage?
Can you clarify what that means?
So the you on stage and the you off stage, is there any crossover? Do you ever find that you start acting like you would on stage while you're off stage? Or
all the time. Yeah, I mean, what makes me want to go on stage is that I always have fun off stage, if you like, you know, and I feel quite confident off stage, but I still sometimes don't feel that confident on stage, but I generally do if there's a decent sized audience, which you can only get if you get, you know, gigs at usually, you know, some kind of established event where you have been put on the bill. You know, I haven't managed to get very big audiences most of the time here at the Fringe so far this year. It's my first Fringe show, but when I have, you know, I've really enjoyed it, because a lot of my performance, if you want to call it that, off stage in real life, it is a performance, and I just react to what people say, you know, in the office or anywhere, in the pub, and I really enjoy that. But you need some people interacting with you in the same way on stage to recreate that buzz and to inspire you to, you know, to be as animated and to be as funny and to get funny dialogue going as you would in the pub or maybe in the office. What you don't want is, what I don't want anyway, is for me to just be talking and people in the audience to be listening. I don't really like that. It's boring. I prefer like constant interaction, like you would in a conversation in the pub maybe.
So do you think that for you, comic performance is a version of kind of a social acceptance that you're looking for? Yeah,
and to create fun all around. You know, it's it's not just to fill a void for me or anything, or to boost my ego, although obviously it is. I'm not looking for anything to deflate my ego, otherwise I'd, you know, not looking for that. It does happen on a bad day, but you know, I'm looking to create that sense of fun and spark that sense of fun that I feel. I try to kind of bring it out in other people. Yeah, I suppose that's to get acceptance, but it's also to entertain other people. I don't know why I have that urge, but I do. It's certainly do in real life, and when I try to do comedy or any kind of entertainment, even if I'm doing a PowerPoint presentation, say at work, I always put laughs into it where I can, you know, off the cuff, not necessarily scripted, but just off the cuff, you know, and I do enjoy that. So I actually enjoy that more than delivering the material. So my ideal is to have some good material, but to kind of also have, you know, just to make stuff up as it goes along, and for that to be different every single time. You know, that's my favourite part.
And what is it about comic performance specifically that draws you, rather than, say, as you mentioned, straight acting or poetry? There's all these various forms of entertainment that you could go down, but what is it about comic performance specifically that makes you want to go in front of a group of people and make them laugh? specifically?
Well, it is basically that. I mean, I really do think my motivation, like what I was saying before about that unscripted interaction is my favourite. It's not, I mean, I don't want to get into improv. I'm not talking about improv. I'm talking about rather like just any funny conversation that you ever have in real life. Really what I would like to do, and I haven't quite got there yet, but it's to, I mean, some compares do it, don't they? Good compares do it when they're filling in, get warming up the crowd effectively for the acts to follow. So, or at a gong show or any of those kind of things. The compare at comedy clubs is really, I want to be like that, where you have got some material, but you don't need that much, or you're just trying to ignite the flame, really, aren't you? And you personally, I don't like to see the way, when it's done by simply saying, hello, who are you, what's your name, what do you do? I mean, I know people do that. Although, if that's the way it has to be done, and then, a good compare may have to do that, may decide to do that, but the aim is, to start a funny conversation. So you do it to kind of find out whether that person, you pick on somebody, I think, that obviously is at the front, but who looks like they might be funny, whether knowingly or not, to create some laughs for the audience as a whole. So after you've asked them what they do, you're hoping that they're going to say something wacky, like, I make condoms or something like that, aren't you? You don't want them to say I'm an accountant. Unfortunately, they quite often are an accountant. And you think, oh no, I've picked a bad one there, But they might be a funny person anyway. And then you just kind of, it's like speed dating, isn't it? You've got to get some funniness out of that person really quick, or you move on and you think this isn't working, quick, ask somebody else. But really that kind of funny interaction, not necessarily by that method, perhaps more by using my own material, and then if people like it, I'll try and, instead of just doing my material, I'll try and get that kind of banter going and keep it going as much as possible. That would be my ideal, and then have long segments of just funny conversation in the room, and then go back to the material after about 5 minutes of that. And so I think that's more in the moment. People feel valued in the audience. They're not just being talked to, but it's almost like everybody's having a party then, more like that atmosphere.
So you mentioned before about sometimes comedians kind of asserting their dominance over. Do you think that there is power dynamics at play between a comic performer and a comic audience?
Well, I think it's actually similar to a teacher. I think you have to be authoritative, so you have to have power, and you have to assert that power. Yes. For instance, if somebody in the audience kept wanting to say something but they weren't funny, you have to be able to tell them effectively to be quiet. And listen to you or listen to somebody else, but not to disrupt the flow of the show, which you control. So you have to kind of keep it on track. I mean, you may, like I say, you may not necessarily want to strictly follow the script all the way through, but what you have to do is to be able to quieten the people you want to quiet and encourage the people you want to encourage. So that requires a certain amount of social skill and authority. And dominance. I would say you have to be able to dominate. I would say dominate people in real life when you want to. Otherwise, you'll never really do that on stage. You might be timid in real life, but a good comedy writer. But I think if you were that kind of person, you might, unless you can somehow derive confidence from being on stage that you don't have in real life. I suppose maybe there are examples of that. Couldn't tell you any, but there might be. But if you are a timid person in real life but a good comedian, you would probably just rely on your material, and there would be less talking to the audience, because you just wouldn't be the kind of person that could interact that skillfully with the audience. So you just do deliver your material and expect them to laugh in the appropriate places.
So do you think that if So say if you did have, say, issues with, like, say, low self-esteem, for example, and you were doing a comic performance which plays with power dynamics that you may not necessarily have on or off stage or on stage.
Yeah.
How do you think that could potentially affect someone's like mental health?
Well, if you weren't naturally good at controlling people in conversation, for instance, and making them laugh, I think you wouldn't get very far unless, like I say, you were the type of comedian who was really good at writing gags and practiced delivering them successfully as well. I mean, I think maybe some people in that situation, I'm only guessing, but some people in that situation, probably the ones that succeed, probably need a character or to have an exaggerated parody sort of character on stage, perhaps to hide behind, like an actor who is often, actors are often low in self-esteem, they become somebody else to become somebody, you know, they themselves are often not that interesting or confident perhaps, and so they need to become somebody else and imagine themselves confident, angry or expressive, and so on and so on. So you may have the same people whose talent is comedy, who are good at writing comedy, who are fans of comedy, but who in real life who are not assertive, and like I say, I think that they would have to develop some other technique other than crowd control and skillful interaction with the audience, and rely on a script and maybe an amusing voice or certain gimmicks of mannerism, or catchphrases and maybe visual jokes, that kind of thing, and just kind of like hope that the audience sit and laugh, but perhaps cut down the spontaneous interaction, which they may not be very good at in real life. And if they're not good at it in real life, I don't honestly see how they could do it on stage. Maybe they can, but I doubt it.
So if you were to adopt this kind of parody version of yourself, if you got to the point where you were being successful at it and you were having to adopt it, potentially several times a week, if not several times a day, do you think that would be good for someone's self-esteem, or do you think that would be bad for someone's self-esteem?
I think it'd be, like I say, if they have to adopt a persona on the stage, I don't think that would be bad for their self-esteem if it got them acceptance. Yeah, in a way that they're, like I say, an actor does the same. If it gets them acceptance and admiration and a career and an interesting lifestyle, perhaps, if they do well, that they otherwise wouldn't have. If they shall we carry on? That's my what is it? My stopwatch. So carry on. I don't necessarily think that adopting a persona is going to be bad for their mental health. I think that, in a way, it's a triumph over adversity. It should help them grow more self-esteem. If you find something you're good at, that helps your self-esteem, I believe. But we all know that any kind of entertainment, however, having said that, can be stressful. It can be because, particularly in comedy, perhaps more so than acting, in comedy you are, it's quite usual for you to be a solo act. And that means that if you don't have a good night or day or whatever it is, a good performance, you could doubt yourself. And I think as long as you separate your work from yourself, and as long as you still believe in yourself, which you should, otherwise you shouldn't go on in the first place, and I don't think most people would, they must have that belief to make them go on in the first place, even if they only try it once. They start off with that belief. If after that bad experience, or what experience is, you still have that belief and you just think, right, well, I didn't quite get it right, this is where I am right now, I didn't quite get it right, but that doesn't mean I don't believe I could get it right. I just need to do. I've learned that needs to be done that way instead of the way I've just done it, and I forgot to do A, B, and C, and I should have remembered. And you learn from it, and you if you still have that belief, I think you will improve. But if it knocks your self-belief, then, or even if you're successful, if you're not enjoying it in some way, or you're finding it very stressful, then yes, of course, that would affect your mental health. Although I have to say that some people say people that are depressed, that happens whether they're successful or not. So in that sense, I don't think it makes any difference. I know somebody that's was doing well at the Fringe, but they're still depressed, and it's starting to affect the whole show, and that's a shame, because the show was good. I saw it and I enjoyed it.
So, I mean, you mentioned about how actors play a character, and comic performers are often kind of playing like an exaggerated version of themselves. What do you think what do you think they're playing an exaggerated version of yourself, potentially, several times a day, potentially? What do you think that would do for I mean kind of a collective, your sense of identity? Do you think that would affect that, or do you think that it's just something that you put on whilst you're on stage?
I suppose if you, well, like I said before, I suspect that if you do put on a persona, as all actors do put on the persona of the character they're portraying, and they bring their own experiences to that character as well, their own emotions, and they become someone else. If you adopt a persona, if you feel going back to comedy, if you feel that you have to adopt a persona, as I said before, that might be because you are not confident in yourself enough, to think that you can be as funny as if you pretended you were somebody else. So you're doing it because you might be doing it because you don't like yourself. You might be doing it because you're not confident, and because although you believe you are funny in your own mind, your normal life, people aren't aware. You feel you have to exaggerate those qualities. Some people are larger than life. They just are. Although I actually think that even the most larger than life personalities that are comedians, they probably also do. Of course they do. They're not really their normal selves in total. That'd be too boring. Because let's face it, there's a difference between how the most loud-mouthed comedian will behave in 99% of cases anyway, if they're mentally okay, that is, and they're not confusing themselves with their character, which would be very unhealthy, I think, if they couldn't switch off, if they were being a character on stage, or even if they are a character off stage. I think they will edit out the boring bits and the normal bits on stage, and they will kind of hype up and ramp up their funnier side. That's what you do. And then when they come off stage, and maybe the next morning they'll get up and they'll go in the supermarket, they won't be going, hey, that milk, that design reminds me of, and say something rude, the design of the carton or whatever. They won't try to entertain the whole shop or shock them, or they won't start abusing, innocent people in the queue, saying, they won't do that. They might think things, they'll think, I'll that's funny, I'll talk about that in the gig tonight. But any normal, healthy, sane comedian will turn off that character, and they will know they'll know it's just a character for their act, and they will turn it off, or turn that exaggerated side of part of their character that they use, or even part of the person they would like to be when they're on stage. They become the person they actually are, which might be considerably more, will be almost certainly considerably more normal and polite and obeying the rules of society, and being, just being, not trying to stand out all the time in real life. I mean, I must admit I do that a little bit. I do show off a lot in normal life, and that's why I think I could be a comedian. But I would say at the moment I haven't quite found, you know, the vehicle to be the kind of confident person I am off stage. On stage, it's the reverse, perhaps, of some people. Maybe some people have developed a way of being more confident on stage and off. But I haven't worked hard enough to get to that stage yet. I would be reasonably happy if I could just be the person I am off stage on stage. But you know, it's a work in progress, that. Or ideally be even funnier than the person I am off stage. Yeah, that would be the ideal.
So you mentioned about say someone may start kind of acting in a way if they weren't perhaps maybe mentally well, and you mentioned a friend of yours who was, even though they were having they had a good show, and they started to feel a bit unwell.
They're starting to go off the rails, yeah.
So who, in that instance where a performer is starting to get a bit unwell, and maybe they don't see it themselves, you know, I don't know who
Also,
it
was. Yeah.
But you know, to speak vaguely, if a performer was starting to go a little bit off the rails, whose responsibility is it to highlight that to that performer?
Well, is it anyone's responsibility? I mean, if they've got a manager or an agent, I suppose that would be their job. Friends would, if they observed it. Although this particular person, they have friends, but they tend to kind of like go through their friends and then lose their friends, you know, because of their. They can turn nasty, you know. They can be nice and then nasty. So they tend to kind of go through their friends and keep having to make new ones. So whose responsibility is it? Yeah. If they have a manager or agent, the manager or agent, anybody with a professional, ongoing relationship with that person, certainly. Also, obviously, any family or partners or very close friends would do that. I would feel it was their job to try to help that person. Otherwise, no. I'm afraid it's they're on their own.
And do you think that's probably better or worse for someone's mental health in that state to be able to work through it, or do you think that would only lead to spiralling?
Well, I think because comedy or performance is quite stressful. I think from moving away from that particular person is quite an extreme example, though. I think I've seen some examples in the fringe of people who actually admit that they, you know, or imply, or you think from looking at them yourself, but quite often they do openly admit that they, have had a hard life, if you like, or have difficulty in life, and comedy seems to be a safety valve almost for them. It seems to be like actors, a performance. For a lot of these really quite interesting performers, is all they genuinely feel at home doing. You know, they are performers rather than ordinary livers, you know, and I cannot at the moment say that I am in that group. I'm not saying that I'm great at life. I'm just saying that I'm not in a position of saying I only feel at home on the stage. I actually have already said in a way that I haven't yet achieved that. You know, I feel more at home, you know, talking to people in real life, in the office, in the pub or wherever, and I am good at that, but I haven't quite found a way of regularly being able to do that on stage. I think mainly simply because, like I said, you know, how do you get big enough audiences? That's the thing. If you're just amateur, you know, the only time I've been able to do it is if I've gone to quite a big gig and I've managed to get on the bill for something, and then I've generally enjoyed it, you know. because I am a natural performer. It's just that maybe when I say I'm not, maybe it's because I don't get the opportunity to do it as often as I'd like. In order to... So
this will
just repeat that.
So this will probably be the final question. So someone said to you, you can become the effective comic performer that you want to be in the way you wish. To present your material and yourself.
Yeah.
However, in order to do that, you could potentially open yourself up to mental health spirals. Would it be worth that trade-off for you?
I don't really want to become like I feel some of the performers are that I see. In other words, that they live for the performance, and of course if they live for the performance and their lives aren't very satisfactory in their own opinion outside of when they get a good reaction on the stage, if they then don't get a good reaction, then of course that hits them very hard, because that's what they live for. So it's rather, what's that like? That's like somebody that loves somebody and then that person doesn't love them back. That's what that's like, you know. Or somebody that had been studying and working hard for something for years and then failed the final exam. You know, that it would hit you very hard. So I don't want to be successful, although I recognise, having seen many of the more radical sort of or confessional performers. There are a lot of confessional comedians and actors perhaps as well that do confessional stuff. Anything autobiographical where there's a lot of confession in it, a lot of admission of weakness. Those people appear quite vulnerable to me. You know, I don't want to become... I don't really... although a lot of people choose to do that, I would rather not. I don't know. I mean, I haven't tried it yet. You see, I mean, I said at the start that I haven't yet. That I need to make my material more personal. If that's what seems to affect people in the performance, you know, what you need to do, I think, is to get their sympathy on an emotional level, perhaps a bit more than simply delivering funny material. Or some people do, some people don't. I mean, if I had to choose, I'd rather, you know, get the laughs without, you know, having to become vulnerable or reveal weaknesses, to be honest. Because I think if you do that, it can, you know, I don't know because I haven't done it, but do you want to constantly bring up traumas or difficult areas of life even in comedy? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe that's why I've kind of shied away from it so far. So far I haven't gone down that road. I think it is risky. There is inherent risk in that, yes, and you know. But so yeah, I don't know. I think I do feel for people that, you know, like confess to upsetting things as part of their act. I think it's almost like therapy. It's almost like public therapy, and I think they're effectively saying, you know, I either am screwed up or was, and the need to talk about it publicly suggests that they're still screwed up in some way. And you know, I don't want to kind of voluntarily open that can of worms. If I can have a successful comedy or entertainer act without doing that, you know, because I think, you know, emotions are dangerous, aren't they? It's almost better to keep them under control than it is to loosen them totally, you know. Otherwise, you know, especially repeatedly, because that if you have a fragile personality, you're playing with fire almost, aren't you? You know, it might be entertaining for people, not entertaining, that's not the right word, emotional and, you know, cathartic for the audience, but is it cathartic for the performer, or is it traumatic for the performer in their attempt to use their suffering to you know, enlighten and gain the sympathy of the audience? At what cost do they do that? If they can do that with no cost to themselves, fine. But you know, admitting failure, how can that be? I don't know, how can that be genuinely good for one's self-belief, especially if it doesn't really get you anywhere fast, you know, but you're just kind of like staying up late every night and not earning much money and travelling back and staying on your own, or you know, not earning much money. I don't really see how that is good for your mental health, no, and I so far have not been even tempted to do that. If you were successful, very successful, maybe it would be more easy to bear, because you get a lot of acceptance and you might even get love. I think what they're looking for is love, you know, that's what they're looking for. And if you can get that love and acceptance in real life, I don't think you would be so desperate to get it on the stage. Therefore it's quite sad if people are trying to get that on the stage, because it suggests to me that they're looking for it in real life and haven't found any equivalent way of getting it. I mean, this is an aside, at the festival and at others in particular, as I knew I would, I see a lot of people, and I'm not making, you know, I think it's quite a shame really. I see a lot of people, male or female, quite a lot of males, you know, taking quite a lot of their clothes off in performance. I think, is that because it's the only way they can get anyone to ever even see their body? I mean, I don't go completely nude, but is that their only way of, like, is it like a form of exposure with a captive audience, just so that you can feel so you can get people to look at you without your clothes on? You know, I think that's really sad. I don't often see that it's justified, to be quite honest. I think just deliver your material, be funny. You don't have to take your clothes off unless it's absolutely necessary. I've seen a lot of acts do it, and I think, why have you done that? But it's very, very common, and I think those people maybe have problems. They're looking for, you know, just looking for a way of sort of pseudo sort of sexual gratification, you know, by becoming a character and doing it as a kind of wacky thing to do, whereas often there's no justification for it. And it suggests to me a lack of self-esteem, or a lack of, you know, having relationships in real life, which is quite sad really. So I think that, you know, that's not the kind of thing that I want to do. I might have done when I was younger, I have to say, but I definitely wouldn't do it now. But I've seen quite old people do it as well in this fringe. I think, no, don't do that, you know. It's not right, unless it's justified, and it rarely is, to be honest. So, yeah, I know I've gone on for a long time, but you know, it's only by talking things through, isn't it, that you can really get to an answer. Because, so really, yeah, it makes me a bit uncomfortable to see people perhaps reveal a bit too much of themselves. I think it's, personally, I prefer an act that just entertains. If they've got issues, if they've got problems, we all have. Let's face it, people in the audience have. You know, it's fine. You don't have to say I've got issues, because we've all got issues. You don't need to say that. You know, it's assumed by me anyway, and by everybody, I think, that everybody has issues. You know, just entertain people. You know, don't treat it as some sort of, ooh, I've got some people in, so I'm going to tell them how messed up I am, without making it funny. I'm just going to say I am messed up, and I'm going to take some clothes off. You know, that's deviant behaviour, you know, it is. So it's not necessarily funny. If you can make it funny, then I don't mind, but it isn't, because I've seen it too many times. It's not even original, you know. So, you know, be funny, I think that's the challenge. If you're in comedy, my rule is be funny or get off the stage, you know, and that's it. And that's, I think, what the audience wants 9 times out of 10. I'm not a major fan of confessional stuff, or, like I say, you know, gratuitous sort of like things that aren't funny, and people that do that kind of thing, I think they probably are revealing that they have unsatisfied needs, mental issues, and stuff like that. Whereas some people we all have mental issues, like I said, so you don't need to kind of expose that all on stage, in my opinion, in comedy. I just don't think you need to. I've seen comedians say, I was bullied, you know, and my boyfriend beat 7 bells out of me, and then they said, and then they go, oh, you can laugh if you want, this is comedy. And I think to myself, well, it's not. You're using the audience as kind of a psychiatrist, if you like, and you're confessing stuff that isn't funny. You know, be funny, that's your job in comedy, and that's, I know I've said that over and over again, but that's really my message, just be funny. End of story.
Fab. That was really good, mate. Thank you.